The antiseptic smell of the hospital room burned my nostrils as I lay there, my eyes closed but my mind painfully alert. The doctor had just left after explaining the risks of my emergency heart surgery scheduled for the morning. At 70, the odds weren't exactly in my favor. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. Mrs. Thompson's condition is serious, Dr. Patel had said. The blockage is severe, but we'll do everything we can. I heard the door open again and recognized my daughter Amelia's perfume, the expensive one I'd given her for Christmas last year. I almost opened my eyes, almost reached for her hand, but something made me wait. Perhaps it was the hushed tone of her voice, or maybe just a mother's intuition honed over decades. Dr. Patel, wait. Amelia's voice was low, controlled. I have a question about my mother's situation. Of course, Mrs. Bennet. A pause. The shuffling of feet. Then words that cut deeper than any surgeon's scalpel ever could. Don't invest too much time in her. It's just to secure the insurance. The air seemed to vanish from my lungs. A cold numbness spread through my chest, worse than any cardiac pain I'd ever experienced. I forced myself to remain perfectly still as my entire world collapsed around me. I'm sorry. Dr. Patel's voice sharpened. I'm just being realistic, Amelia continued, her tone matter-of-fact. She's 70. The surgery is risky. Let's not waste resources when the outcome is predictable. Dr. Patel's response was clipped. Mrs. Bennet, we give every patient our best effort regardless of age. Your mother is quite healthy otherwise and has good prospects for recovery. Of course, Amelia backpedaled. I'm just concerned about her suffering needlessly. Suffering needlessly. The words echoed in my mind as tears threatened to escape from beneath my closed eyelids. I'd raised her alone after Robert died when she was only 12. I'd worked 2 jobs to put her through college. I'd postponed my own retirement to help with the down payment on her house. I heard Dr. Patel walk away, his footsteps fading down the corridor. The door closed, and I felt Amelia's presence beside my bed. Her hand, cool and dry, patted mine briefly. Mom, she said, her voice suddenly sweet. Are you awake? I opened my eyes slowly, meeting her gaze. My own daughter, my only child, looking down at me with a smile that no longer reached her eyes. How had I never noticed before? Just resting, I managed, my voice steadier than I expected. You're in good hands, she said, setting her designer purse on the chair beside my bed. Dr. Patel seems very competent. I studied her face. The face I'd memorized from the moment the nurse had placed her in my arms 38 years ago. The face I'd watched transition from toddler to child to teenager to woman. The face that now regarded me with such calculated concern. What did the doctor say? I asked, pretending I hadn't heard everything. About tomorrow? Amelia straightened the already straight blanket across my legs. Just that they'll take good care of you. That's all that matters. Another lie. Amelia, I said, gathering my courage. I need to tell you something important about my insurance policy. Her eyes sharpened with interest. What about it? It's been changed recently, I said, watching her face carefully. There are some details you should know. She pulled the chair closer, her full attention on me now. What kind of details, Mom? That night, as Amelia left promising to return early for the surgery, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The pain in my heart had nothing to do with blocked arteries. In just a few moments, everything had changed. The daughter I thought I knew had become a stranger calculating her inheritance over my hospital bed. The night nurse came in to check my vitals, her kind face a stark contrast to the coldness I'd seen in my daughter's eyes. Can't sleep, Mrs. Thompson? She asked, adjusting my pillow. Just thinking about tomorrow, I replied. You'll be fine, she assured me, patting my hand. Dr. Patel is the best cardiac surgeon in the state. As she left, I made a decision. If I survived tomorrow's surgery, nothing would ever be the same again. The love and trust I'd given my daughter had been betrayed in the most fundamental way possible. Now I needed to protect myself from my own child. I closed my eyes, a tear finally escaping down my cheek. In the morning, they would cut open my chest to repair my heart, but I wondered if anyone could repair the damage already done by those 9 callous words. Don't invest too much time in her. It's just for the insurance. 3 days after my surgery, I woke to find Amelia sitting beside my hospital bed, tapping away on her phone. She didn't notice I was awake, too absorbed in whatever message she was sending. The frown line between her eyebrows had deepened since yesterday. "Richard says the guest room is all set up," she said when she finally glanced up. "You'll stay with us until you're back on your feet." It wasn't a question or an offer, it was a statement. Decision made without my input, just like when she'd sold my car last year after my minor cataract surgery, insisting I shouldn't drive anymore. "That's thoughtful," I replied, choosing my words carefully. Since that devastating moment before my surgery, I'd been watching, listening, collecting the pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to complete. Dr. Patel arrived for his morning rounds, pleased with my recovery. "Mrs. Thompson, your heart is responding beautifully. You're quite the fighter." I caught the flash of impatience on Amelia's face before she masked it with a smile. "When can she be discharged?" Amelia asked, her hand clutching her designer handbag a little too tightly. "Possibly tomorrow if tonight goes well," Dr. Patel responded. "But she'll need careful monitoring at home." "Of course," Amelia nodded. "We'll take excellent care of her." The way she said excellent care sent a chill down my spine. The next afternoon, Richard helped me into their sleek SUV while Amelia signed my discharge papers. My son-in-law was a tall, perpetually distracted man whose real estate business kept him constantly on his phone. Today, however, he seemed unusually attentive. "Nancy," he said once we were alone in the car, "we're glad you're coming home with us." Home. Such a simple word that should bring comfort. Instead, it felt like I was being taken to a place where I no longer belonged. When Amelia joined us, the conversation shifted to inconsequential topics. The weather, hospital food, neighborhood gossip. Not once did they ask how I was feeling or if I was afraid after facing my mortality on that operating table. The guest room at their house was sterile and impersonal: beige walls, generic artwork, and a narrow bed that looked like it came from a discount furniture store. Nothing like my warm, lived-in home with its family photos and comfortable chairs. The house I'd been convinced to sell 6 months ago because it was too much to maintain at my age. "Bathrooms down the hall," Amelia said, placing my small suitcase on the bed. "Dinner's at 6. Rest until then." Left alone, I carefully lowered myself onto the bed, mindful of my healing chest. The physical pain was manageable. The emotional wound festered with each passing hour. That night, unable to sleep, I heard voices from downstairs. Curiosity and self-preservation drove me to slowly make my way to the staircase. "How long does the doctor think recovery will take?" Richard's voice carried up the stairs. "Too long," Amelia replied. "But once she's settled here, we can start discussing the next steps." "The retirement community?" "Eventually. Let's not rush things and make her suspicious." I gripped the banister tighter, my surgical scar throbbing with my quickened heartbeat. "We need to be careful with the paperwork," Richard continued. "Make sure everything's properly transferred." "I know what I'm doing," Amelia snapped. "Just keep her comfortable and compliant. The policy pays out more if she—" A door closed, cutting off the rest of her sentence, but I'd heard enough. Slowly, I crept back to my room, each step heavier than the last. The next morning, Amelia brought breakfast on a tray: toast barely warm and tea that was too strong. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "How did you sleep, Mom?" "Fine," I lied, wondering when lying had become our primary form of communication. "Good. Richard and I need to run some errands today. Sophie will be home from school around 3 if you need anything." My 16-year-old granddaughter, the only genuine person in this house. I nodded, relieved to have a few hours alone to think. After they left, I gathered my strength and made my way to the desk in the corner of my room. My fingers trembled as I opened my small address book. Martha, my old friend from the library where I'd worked for 30 years, answered on the third ring. "Nancy, how are you feeling? I wanted to visit, but Amelia said you weren't up for company yet." Another lie. "Martha, I need your help with something important." "Anything, dear. Could you bring me some paperwork from my filing cabinet? The key is under the blue pot on your back porch." I remember. When she arrived that afternoon with my documents, Martha's expression confirmed what I already knew. Something was very wrong in this house. "Nancy," she whispered, glancing nervously at the door, Your house is empty. Everything's gone. Furniture, photos, everything. My heart didn't skip a beat this time. Perhaps Dr. Patel had fixed it too well. Or perhaps I was finally seeing the truth I'd been blind to for too long. Thank you for telling me, I said calmly, taking the file folder from her shaking hands. After Martha left, I opened the folder and stared at my life insurance policy. The one Amelia had convinced me to upgrade last year. The beneficiary details confirmed what the hospital conversation had started. I was worth more to my daughter dead than alive. From downstairs, I heard the front door open and Sophie's voice calling out, "Grandma? Are you awake? I brought you something." I quickly hid the documents under my pillow. Perhaps in this cold house, there was still one warm heart I could trust. "Grandma, I made these for you." Sophie placed a small bouquet of paper flowers on my nightstand. Unlike her mother, whose smiles never seemed to reach her eyes anymore, Sophie's entire face lit up when she grinned. "They're beautiful, sweetheart," I said, reaching for her hand. "Thank you." She perched on the edge of my bed, careful not to jostle me. "How are you feeling?" "Really feeling, not the answer you give Mom." The directness of her question caught me off guard. At 16, Sophie was observant in ways Amelia had never been, even as a child. "I'm sore," I admitted. "And concerned." Sophie's eyes darted to the door before she lowered her voice. "About Mom and Dad?" My breath caught. "What do you mean?" She fidgeted with the sleeve of her oversized sweater. "They've been acting weird. Arguing when they think I can't hear. Dad's on the phone all the time with some guy named Marcus about liquidating assets. And..." She hesitated. "And what, Sophie?" "Mom was going through your purse last night. She took something from your wallet." I closed my eyes briefly. The spare key to my safe deposit box. I should have known. "Grandma, what's going on?" Sophie's voice trembled slightly. "Are you really staying here permanently now?" "That seems to be the plan," I said carefully. "According to your parents. But not according to you?" This child was too perceptive for her own good. I saw myself in her. The same quiet determination, the unwillingness to accept convenient lies. "Sophie, there are some complicated things happening that I'm trying to figure out." I squeezed her hand. "But I don't want you caught in the middle." "I'm already in the middle," she whispered. "Last week, I overheard Dad telling someone they were counting on the insurance, and that they'd waited long enough. What does that mean?" The blood in my veins turned to ice. I'd suspected, of course, but hearing it confirmed through Sophie made it undeniably real. "It means I need to be very careful," I said finally. "And I may need your help." Over the next week, Sophie became my eyes and ears in the house. She brought me mail that Amelia had forgotten to give me. She told me about late-night conversations between her parents that stopped abruptly when she entered the room. And most importantly, she smuggled in my cell phone that Amelia had claimed was lost during my hospital stay. "Mom went through your contacts yesterday," Sophie informed me, sitting cross-legged on my bed while supposedly helping me with a crossword puzzle. "She deleted some numbers. Said she was organizing for you." I nodded, not surprised. "Sophie, do you remember Nurse Martha who visits sometimes to my incision? The nice one with the red hair?" "Yes. Next time she comes, I need you to give her something." I carefully pulled out an envelope from between the pages of my mystery novel. "It's important that no one knows about this." Sophie took the envelope without question. Inside was a letter to my old attorney, Thomas Grayson, detailing my suspicions and asking for his urgent help. 2 days later, Martha arrived for my checkup. Amelia hovered in the doorway as the nurse examined my healing surgical scar. "Look, Thompson," Martha said cheerfully. "You're healing beautifully." "Thank you, dear." I smiled, noticing Sophie lingering in the hallway behind her mother. "Is there anything you need?" Martha asked, packing up her supplies. "Actually," I said, "I've been having trouble sleeping. Would you mind asking Dr. Patel if he could prescribe something mild?" Amelia immediately stepped forward. "I don't think that's necessary, Mom. You've been sleeping fine." "I haven't," I countered gently. "I've been awake most nights." Martha glanced between us, professional enough not to show her discomfort at the tension. "I'll certainly pass along the request." As she prepared to leave, Sophie darted forward. I'll walk you out, Nurse Martha. I want to ask you something about becoming a nurse someday. I caught Martha's quick nod, confirming the exchange had been made. That night, as I pretended to sleep, Amelia and Richard argued in hushed tones outside my door. The lawyer called again, Richard hissed. We need to move faster. I'm handling it, Amelia snapped. But we need to be careful. That nurse is asking too many questions. Can't you find a different one? Not without raising suspicions. Just stick to the plan. Their footsteps retreated down the hall, but the weight of their words remained. Their plan was becoming clearer by the day, and I was running out of time. 3 days later, Sophie slipped into my room after school, her eyes bright with excitement. Grandma, someone called for you while Mom was out. She handed me a folded piece of paper. I wrote down his message. The note was brief. Thomas Grayson received your letter. Meeting arranged for Friday. Martha will help. Relief washed over me. Thank you, sweetheart. Sophie sat beside me, uncharacteristically serious. Grandma, I found something in Dad's office. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos of documents. Forms with my signature on them. Signatures I had never made. They're transferring your accounts, she said quietly. And there's a document about power of attorney. Did you sign these? I stared at the forged signatures, anger replacing fear. No, Sophie. I didn't. Her eyes welled with tears. I thought so. What are they doing, Grandma? Why would they do this? I pulled her close, this child who had become my unexpected ally in a house filled with betrayal. Some people make terrible choices when money is involved, I said softly. Even family. What are you going to do? I looked at the photos again, then at my granddaughter's worried face. I'm going to fight back. But I need you to be brave a little longer, and keep our secret. Sophie straightened her shoulders, suddenly looking older than her 16 years. I will. I promise. As she left my room, I realized that in this dark situation, a light had emerged. Sophie had shown me that while one family bond had been corrupted beyond repair, another had grown stronger than ever. Friday morning arrived with a palpable tension. Amelia hovered around me more than usual, checking my medication, adjusting my pillows, asking repeatedly if I needed anything. Her sudden attentiveness made my skin crawl. Richard and I are going to a real estate conference this afternoon, she announced while arranging my lunch tray. We'll be back around 6. Sophie has debate club, so you'll have a few hours to yourself. She hesitated. Will you be okay alone? I'll be fine, I assured her, hiding my relief. I might even try to walk around a bit. Dr. Patel said movement is important for recovery. Her smile tightened. Just stay inside. And don't overexert yourself. The moment their car disappeared down the driveway, I called Martha. 20 minutes later, she arrived with Thomas Grayson, my attorney of 30 years. Nancy, Thomas said, his lined face grave as he took my hand. I came as soon as I could. Thank you both for coming, I said, leading them to the living room. My steps were slow but steady. Each day I was growing stronger, much to Amelia's poorly concealed disappointment. Thomas placed his briefcase on the coffee table. I've reviewed the documents Sophie photographed. The signatures are clearly forged. We have grounds for immediate legal action. Martha nodded grimly. And I've documented the concerning comments and behaviors since your surgery. It's a clear pattern of elder abuse. The word abuse hung in the air. My own daughter. My only child. There's more, I said, retrieving a folder from my room. My bank statements. Large withdrawals I never made. And look at this. I handed them a life insurance policy. Amelia increased the coverage last year and added an accidental death clause that pays double. Thomas studied the documents, his expression darkening. Nancy, this is serious. They're systematically taking control of your assets while setting up a substantial financial incentive for your death. What can we do? I asked. First, we secure your remaining assets. He pulled out several papers. I've prepared a revocation of power of attorney and new banking authorizations. Sign these immediately. As I signed, Martha kept watch at the window. Nancy, I hate to ask this, but do you feel physically safe here? The question hit me hard. Did I? The medication that made me drowsier than it should. The accidents waiting to happen. A loose rug at the top of the stairs, the shower floor mysteriously slippery yesterday. No, I admitted. I don't think I do. Then we need to get you out, Thomas said firmly. Today. I can't just leave, I protested. Everything I own is here or gone. And Sophie. Sophie will understand, Martha assured me. She's the one who reached out to me first, you know, before your letter. That girl has a good head on her shoulders. This revelation stunned me. My granddaughter had recognized the danger even before I fully had. We'll need to be strategic, Thomas warned. If they suspect you know anything, they might accelerate their plans. For the next hour, we crafted a careful exit strategy. Thomas would petition for an emergency protection order. Martha would arrange temporary housing through a senior advocacy program. And I would continue to play the role of the oblivious compliant mother, just for a little while longer. After they left, I carefully erased all evidence of their visit. Then I made an important phone call to a number Sophie had given me. Her debate coach, Mrs. Chan, who happened to be a mandatory reporter for elder abuse. By late afternoon, everything was in place. I sat in the guest room, my prison for these past weeks, and waited for Sophie to return from school. When she arrived, her eyes widened at seeing me dressed in street clothes rather than a nightgown. "Grandma," she whispered, closing the door behind her. "Sophie, I'm leaving today," I said gently. "It's not safe for me here anymore." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know. Where will you go?" "Somewhere safe. I can't tell you yet, but I'll find a way to contact you." I hugged her tightly. "Thank you for everything you've done. You're braver than anyone I know." "What about Mom and Dad? What will happen to them?" The question broke my heart. No 16-year-old should have to worry about her parents facing legal consequences. "There will be investigations," I said truthfully. "But my main concern is protecting you and myself. Whatever happens next depends on them." Sophie nodded, wiping away tears. "I saved something for you." She pulled a small velvet pouch from her backpack. "I found it when they were clearing out your house. I knew it was important." Inside was my wedding ring, the one Robert had placed on my finger 50 years ago. The one Amelia had told me was lost during the move. "Oh, Sophie." My voice cracked. "Thank you." A car horn honked outside, Martha's signal. Sophie peeked through the curtains. "It's time," she said. I gathered my small bag. Just essentials and a few treasured photos. Sophie listened carefully. "In 2 days, if anyone asks, tell them I went for a walk while everyone was out. Nothing more." "I understand." She hugged me fiercely. "Be safe, Grandma." Martha was waiting in her car, engine running. As we drove away from the house where my daughter had plotted against me, a strange mixture of grief and liberation washed over me. "We'll stop at the bank first," Martha said, squeezing my hand. "Then meet Thomas at the courthouse." I nodded, watching my daughter's house disappear in the side mirror. The home I'd thought would be my safe haven had become a trap. The daughter I'd raised alone had become a stranger calculating my worth in death benefits. Yet somehow I felt stronger than I had in years. Perhaps it was the repaired heart beating steadily in my chest. Perhaps it was the knowledge that I had allies, Martha, Thomas, Sophie, even Nurse Chan. Or perhaps it was simply the clarity that comes from facing the unthinkable and refusing to be a victim. That evening, in a small but comfortable room in a secure senior residence, I sat by the window watching the sunset. My phone rang. Thomas with news that the emergency protection order had been granted and my account secured. "What happens tomorrow?" I asked him. "Tomorrow," he said, "Amelia and Richard get a visit from Adult Protective Services. And then, Nancy, we make sure you get everything back that they took from you." After hanging up, I felt a curious calm. The hurt remained. It would always remain, but alongside it grew a determination. For too long, I had given Amelia the power to determine my worth. No more. I touched the surgical scar on my chest, the physical wound that was healing cleanly while the emotional one still bled. Both were part of me now. Both were reminders that I had survived. The call came at 7:32 the next morning. Amelia's name flashed on my screen, and despite everything, my heart still lurched. She was still my daughter, still the baby I had held in my arms and promised to protect forever. I let it ring 4 times before answering, steadying my voice. Hello. Mom. Panic etched her voice. Where are you? Are you okay? I closed my eyes, steeling myself against the concern that sounded so genuine. I'm safe, Amelia. Safe? What do you mean? We came home and you were gone. We've been looking everywhere, called the police. I know exactly what you've been doing, I interrupted quietly. And it's not looking for me. Silence stretched between us. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Harder. Calculating. What are you talking about? You're not well, Mom. The surgery, the medication, you're confused. Am I confused about the forged signatures on my bank documents? I asked evenly. Or about the conversations regarding how you're counting on the insurance? Or perhaps I'm confused about how my house was emptied without my consent. Another pause, longer this time. I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind, recalculating, adjusting the strategy. Who's been filling your head with these ridiculous ideas? She finally demanded. Was it Sophie? That girl has always had an overactive imagination. The attempt to shift blame to her own daughter ignited something fierce inside me. Leave Sophie out of this. She's the only honest person in your house. Mom, please. Her voice softened, adopting the patronizing tone she perfected over the last few years. You're not thinking clearly. Come home and we can sort this out. Richard and I only want what's best for you. What's best for me? I echoed. Or what's best for your bank account? That's unfair, she snapped, the mask slipping. After everything we've done for you. You mean after everything I've done for you? I corrected. The college tuition. The down payment on your house. The countless times I've stepped in to solve your financial problems. So that's what this is about? Money. You're keeping score. I sighed, suddenly tired of the charade. No, Amelia. This is about hearing my own daughter tell a doctor not to invest too much time in me because it's just for the insurance. The silence that followed told me everything. She hadn't known I was awake. Hadn't known I'd heard her true intentions revealed in that sterile hospital corridor. I can explain that, she stammered. You misunderstood. I was just. Don't, I said softly. Please don't lie anymore. I think we're past that now. The sound of a doorbell came through the phone. Then muffled voices. Mom, I need to go. There's someone at the door. Her voice had lost its confidence, replaced by something close to fear. We'll talk later. Yes, I agreed. We will. After hanging up, I called Thomas immediately. His secretary confirmed what I already suspected. Adult Protective Services had arrived at Amelia's house, accompanied by a police officer. 2 hours later, sitting in Thomas's wood-paneled office, I watched as he laid out photographs of the forged documents, bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals, and Sophie's sworn statement about conversations she had overheard. It's a strong case, he said. With the evidence we've gathered, we can pursue both civil and criminal charges. The word criminal made my stomach clench. My daughter facing possible jail time. How had we come to this? What about Sophie? I asked. She's still a minor. I don't want her caught in the middle of a legal battle against her parents. Thomas nodded thoughtfully. We've already spoken with family services. Given the circumstances and Sophie's age, they're exploring options. She's expressed a strong desire to live with you. My heart swelled and broke simultaneously. And Richard? How involved was he? Deeply, Thomas confirmed. The forged signatures appear to be his work, and he was managing the diverted funds. He's as culpable as Amelia, perhaps more so. A knock at the door interrupted us. Martha entered, followed by Sophie, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. Grandma! She rushed into my arms and I held her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Are you okay? I asked, smoothing her hair. She nodded against my shoulder. They came this morning. Mom was crying, Dad was yelling. They wanted to know where you were, what I knew. She pulled back, meeting my eyes. I told them everything, Grandma. Everything I heard, everything I saw. I cupped her face in my hands. You were very brave. Mrs. Thompson, Thomas interjected gently. We need to discuss next steps. The police want a formal statement from you this afternoon. I looked at Sophie, then back at Thomas. What happens now? To Amelia and Richard? That depends partly on you, he replied. on whether you wish to press charges. The weight of this decision pressed down on me. Could I send my own daughter to jail? The same child I had nursed through fevers, taught to ride a bike, comforted through heartbreaks? Yet the Amelia I had raised seemed long gone, replaced by a woman who saw her mother as nothing more than a financial asset to be liquidated when convenient. I need time to think, I said finally. And I need to speak with Amelia alone, face to face. Thomas frowned. Nancy, I strongly advise against. I understand your concerns, I interrupted. But this is my daughter. Before any final decisions are made, I need to look her in the eye and hear what she has to say for herself. Sophie squeezed my hand. I'll go with you. I shook my head. No, sweetheart. This is something I need to do alone. As we left Thomas's office, arrangements were made. The confrontation would happen the next day, in a neutral location, with security present but unobtrusive. That night, in my temporary apartment, I sat by the window watching the lights of the city blink on one by one. Sophie slept in the spare bedroom, her future as uncertain as my own. Tomorrow I would face my daughter. Tomorrow I would hear whatever justification she offered for betraying the most fundamental bond between us. Tomorrow I would decide whether forgiveness was possible, or if some wounds cut too deep to ever truly heal. The community center room was neutral territory, a place neither Amelia nor I had any emotional connection to. I arrived early, settling into one of the padded chairs at the small conference table. Thomas had arranged for a security guard to wait discreetly outside, despite my assurances that I didn't fear my daughter physically. When the door opened, I barely recognized the woman who entered. Amelia's carefully styled hair was pulled back in a hasty ponytail. Her designer clothes had been replaced by a simple blouse and jeans. The confident, sometimes condescending demeanor had vanished, leaving her looking smaller, almost diminished. "Mom," she said, stopping just inside the doorway. "Sit down, Amelia." She complied, perching on the edge of the chair across from me, her hands fidgeting on the table. "Are they going to arrest Richard?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "That's what you're concerned about?" I couldn't hide my disbelief. Not an apology, not an explanation. She looked away, focusing on the generic landscape painting on the wall. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. How was it supposed to happen, Amelia? Was I supposed to die conveniently? Was that the plan? Her head snapped back, eyes widening. "No, of course not. We just needed money," I finished for her. "You needed money." She didn't deny it. The silence between us filled with 38 years of history, bedtime stories and birthday cakes, graduations and weddings, and somewhere along the way, a fundamental breakdown in everything that should have mattered. "What happened to you?" I finally asked, my voice softer now. "When did money become more important than family, than love?" Amelia's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I felt no urge to comfort her. "Not yet. Maybe not ever again. We were drowning," she whispered. Richard's business was failing. The house was underwater. Sophie's college fund was gone. Everyone thought we were successful, but it was all falling apart. "So you decided to sacrifice me instead of asking for help? Instead of being honest?" She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "We tried to make it work. The plan was just to move you in with us, consolidate resources. But then your heart condition worsened, and the insurance policy seemed like a solution," I finished. "A way out." Amelia nodded miserably. "I know it's unforgivable." "Yes," I agreed quietly. "It is." We sat in silence, the weight of her betrayal and my grief filling the space between us. Outside, life continued. People walking past the windows, cars in the parking lot. The world spinning on its axis despite this rupture that had forever altered our family. "What happens now?" Amelia finally asked. "Will you press charges?" I studied my daughter's face, the face I had once known better than my own. "I've made some decisions." I opened the folder I brought with me and slid several documents across the table. "This is a legally binding agreement. It stipulates that neither you nor Richard will have any control over my finances or medical decisions. All assets that were improperly taken will be returned. In exchange, I won't pursue criminal charges." Hope flickered in her eyes. "You mean, I'm not doing this for you?" I said firmly. I'm doing it for Sophie. She doesn't deserve to have her parents in prison, no matter what they've done. Amelia reached for my hand, but I pulled back. Mom, thank you. We can fix this, start over. No, I interrupted. We can't. That's the second part of the agreement. Sophie will come live with me until she graduates. If you and Richard genuinely want to rebuild your lives, you'll get counseling, find legitimate work, and prove you can be trusted again. Not for my sake, but for hers. Amelia's face crumpled. You're taking our daughter? She's not a possession, Amelia. And she chose this. She doesn't feel safe with you anymore, and frankly, neither do I. The truth of this statement hung between us, impossible to dismiss or soften. Sign the papers, I said. Then start the hard work of becoming someone your daughter might want to know again someday. With a shaking hand, Amelia signed each document. As she did, I felt no triumph, no vindication, only a profound sadness for what had been lost, and a quiet resolve for what lay ahead. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new home, arranging flowers for the dining table. The cottage wasn't large, but it had enough room for Sophie and me, with a small garden that had become my sanctuary. Grandma, do these earrings look okay with this dress? Sophie twirled in the doorway, radiant in a deep blue graduation dress. Perfect, I smiled. Your speech cards are on the counter. She grabbed them, then hesitated. They're here. I saw them parking outside. I nodded, my hand steady as I continued with the flowers. Remember what we talked about. This is your day. You don't have to manage their feelings or mine. The doorbell rang, and Sophie squared her shoulders before answering it. Amelia and Richard stood awkwardly on the porch, dressed formally for their daughter's high school graduation. You look beautiful, Amelia said, her eyes drinking in Sophie's appearance. Thanks, Mom, Sophie replied, her voice polite but guarded. Richard handed her a small gift bag. We're so proud of you, kiddo. The carefully choreographed visit continued as we all moved to the living room. The conversation stayed on safe topics: Sophie's college plans, the summer weather, her valedictorian speech. Nothing about the court-mandated therapy Amelia and Richard were attending, or the payments they were still making to financial losses. As we prepared to leave for the ceremony, I caught Amelia watching me, her expression complicated: gratitude, shame, and something that might have been genuine remorse. Mom, she said quietly, when Sophie and Richard had stepped outside, I know I can never undo what happened, but I want you to know I'm trying to become someone better. I nodded, acknowledging her words without offering absolution. Some breaches of trust might never be fully repaired, but small bridges could perhaps be built in time. At the graduation ceremony, sitting between Martha and Thomas in the audience, I watched Sophie take the stage. Her voice rang clear as she spoke about resilience, honesty, and the courage to rebuild when foundations crumble. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from those closest to us, she said, her gaze finding mine in the crowd. And sometimes the greatest strength is shown not in how we handle success, but in how we rise after betrayal. My eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but of fierce pride. This remarkable young woman had emerged from our family's darkest chapter with wisdom beyond her years. Later that evening, after the guests had gone and Sophie was celebrating with friends, I sat on my porch swing watching the sunset. Martha joined me, bringing 2 glasses of wine. To new beginnings, she toasted. And to knowing your own worth, I added. We clinked glasses, and I thought about the journey of the past year. From that hospital bed where I'd overheard my daughter's callous words, to this peaceful evening in a home that was truly mine. The betrayal would always be part of my story. The pain might never completely fade, but it no longer defined me. What defined me now was the strength I'd found in standing up for myself, the joy in watching Sophie blossom, and the peace that comes from living authentically, surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I realized that sometimes life's most painful chapters can lead to the most beautiful beginnings. My heart, once broken by betrayal, now beat strongly with purpose and possibility. And that perhaps was the most valuable lesson of all.